Hello everyone and welcome back to All Things True Crime. In the last video, I started a new series, Behind the Crime, and we heard from Casei Jones' sister, Sarah. Following on from that interview, Casey's best friend Sheena wanted to share with us. Before you listen to this episode, I strongly recommend you listen to the previous video to catch up on the case so far if you haven't already. Let's get straight into the interview with Sheena. So I'm not going to say anything graphic or anything like that. I don't know if you saw the interview I just did with Sarah.
Yeah, I watched some of it. I broke down a bit, so I had to stop watching it. But yeah, I watched it.
Okay. So I'm not going to try and trigger you at all with this because I know that this is a lot.
It is, and to be honest, I may break down just because I always have a hard time with it.
Yeah. The shock is so hard.
Yeah. It is. It really is. And she helped me through so much, just like I helped her. We both went through miscarriages and loss of children, and we both had this passion to be moms. And she never got to see me become a mom, but I got to see her become a mom.
She knows, though. She knows.
Oh God, she was an amazing mom. She was great with those kids. She was great with those kids. She was just an amazing mom. I can't talk enough good things about her. After the last time I seen her, I remember telling my ex-husband as we were driving, I told him, oh my gosh, I hope I can be as good a mom as she is. I'm like, those kids have the best manners. I'm like, not that I had seen him before, but we actually got to spend the whole day with all four of the kids and her and him at Ormond Beach in Florida. And they were, please, thank you, can I have some more? They were just the sweetest and most mild-mannered children. And I was just like, man, I hope I can raise my kids to be the same way. After that trip, I ended up getting pregnant with my son. And in June of 2019, so I got pregnant with him not long after that trip, because we last saw them New Year's Day of New Year's Eve of 2018 going into 2019. And then just a few months after seeing them, I found out I was pregnant with my son. And I went to a regular doctor's appointment, and they couldn't find his heartbeat, and I lost it. And I had him stillborn, and she was there for me instantaneous. Even though she was in Florida and I was in Indiana, I had to take a break from Facebook because after losing him, he was my fifth loss. And I didn't know what I was having. We were 2 weeks away from finding out when we lost him. So I had his memorial service, and then I deactivated my Facebook just for some time for me to focus on me and just take a step away. And I didn't get back on until they posted the missing posters, and my ex had said, hey, they're posting this. And that's when I got back on, was not till September of 2019. So 2019 was awful for me.
I'm so sorry.
I had still messaged her while I was off of Facebook because I still kept my messenger activated. And she messaged me here and there. And then he started messaging me as her. And I didn't realize it just because I knew, I used to hand my ex my phone and have him message. The messages were different, but I just didn't think anything of it. It's hard. It really impacts you when you look back and you look at those messages from June to July and August and the difference, and realizing that they weren't from her.
And that's obviously incredibly traumatic as well, to hear those, to go back and look at the messages and realize that it wasn't her.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of Michael?
My first impressions of him were not bad. I was happy for her. I actually took a trip to Florida on my own. My ex had to work, so I flew down. My grandparents are snowbirds, so I flew down to spend the time with them. And him and Casey had come up for a day because she was very close to my grandparents. So she came up, introduced him to my grandparents, and they spent a couple days with us. We had a great time, and I got to meet him. He told me how much he loved her, how he was going to take care of her, and I I thought, okay, he seems genuine. He seems like a good guy. Hopefully, he is. And I didn't want. I'm non-judgmental. I always want to think good about somebody before. I always try to think the best of somebody. Always, even if I've seen things that they've done that aren't good. So let me lead into that. He left her a couple times. And one of those times that he left her, it just destroyed her. And she called me bawling. And I just was heartbroken. I was at school. I was in college at the time. And I remember taking her call and just being heartbroken for her. He had taken, he dropped her off at work and he took her vehicle and wiped out her account and took the vehicle to the airport, dropped it off there, left it in the parking lot. He flew to, I don't remember where he flew to, but he put her in a deep depression. That's when she was pregnant with her cow. She was so distraught. I tried to distract her by telling her about some friends I knew that were single, so she wouldn't be thinking about him, because this was the I think it was the second time he did it. It was the last time he did it. And I remember if it was a few weeks or a month later, he ended up messaging me and apologizing and asking if I could reach out to her so he could talk to her. I told him how he messed up. I was honest with her and told her that he did reach out to me. And I told him I wasn't to be the middle person. He needed to talk to her. Obviously, they ended up getting back together. I told him that he was going to have to just earn my trust back, and he did what he could too. And the kids called me Aunt Sheena. He even sent me a picture of her Callie and said, "Here, Aunt Sheena, something about it." With me being Aunt Sheena, it was really cute. I warmed back up to him. I mean, the last time I saw him, how I honestly feel is I hugged him, I looked in the devil's eyes, and I didn't see the devil. I don't know how I didn't see that. He was charming. He acted, he seemed like he would just absolutely loved her and the kids. And I don't understand how somebody could love them as much as I thought he did do the things that he did.
I don't think that's on you though. Like everyone I've spoken to, no one has said that they saw signs, like overt signs that he was a horrible person. So please don't put any of that blame, because I know I can tell that we would be similar and I would blame myself for not saying anything. So don't put that on yourself, because
Right.
that's absolutely nothing. There's nothing that you did other than support your friend.
It is something you just sit there and you think about, what could have you done differently? What possibly could have changed? Like, could have something changed the events? And I mean, you can't turn back time.
No. This whole him leaving thing is very strange. Did he give any reason why he just did what he did and took all of her money and left?
He told her that he missed his kids. He missed his other kids. That was his reasoning, was that he had to be closer to them.
Did he tell her before he left, or after, when they were reconnecting?
From what I understand, it was after.
Wow, so she had no idea in the beginning.
She knew about the kids, but I don't think she realized that he would just up and leave like that. I thought, she was under the impression they were doing things together. They were going to be able to see the kids together. Like when they had his kids, she loved those kids just like they were her own. She did everything she could for those. She was a great stepmom to them. She was amazing. She loved his daughter and his two boys. I mean, I know that, like I know Sarah told you, their relationship may have not started off in the greatest of terms, but she absolutely adored the children, and she would have done anything for them.
So, apart from the incident where he was horrible and he took all of her money and her car, were there any other signs that did Casey confide in you at all about any other signs or red flags?
No, she told me that the reason she was having such a hard time getting that last time he left, it was so hard for her. She said because he treated her like a queen. He rubbed her feet. He was there for her. She said he never laid hands on her. She said, that she told me her previous husband had. Um, Richard, I don't know. I never saw it myself, but I believed my friend. So with Richard, she told me, they got physical, but she told me Michael never made her fear. She was never fearful of him or that he would get physical with her. I never thought that this is where we would be today.
Of course not. I know Richard told the police that at one point Cameron had said that Michael was abusive. He obviously didn't use that word. So that's the only instance I've heard so far about someone saying that there was abuse. And I think a lot of people don't know about coercive control and how someone can manipulate you without, or emotionally abuse you without laying a finger on you. Do you know of him sort of manipulating finances or language that was used that wasn't appropriate? Any manipulation at all?
The only thing that I knew about was, like I said, when he left and he took all of her money, and that, to me, that's financial. But outside of that, I mean, no. I mean, if I remember correctly, the time he left before that, he also had taken our money then as well, to get where he needed to go, and that would be the only thing where he did anything regarding being evil or vindictive or manipulative, would be taking her money.
He didn't tell her what to wear, tell her what she can and can't
Uh-uh.
eat, where she can go, nothing like that.
No, he told me he wasn't really a fan of her being on social media that much, but he wasn't going to stop her. He told me that, I showed her Snapchat, and he looked at me and he was like, "Why do you have to show her that? Because now she's going to be on it all the time." But she was. She loved it. She took some cute Snapchats with her and Mercalli. But yeah, he was like, he's like, that's just another thing she's gonna be on. But he was just like joking over it. It wasn't something that I was like, oh, he's gonna take that away from her, because he was just like, yeah, it's just another thing for her to be on her phone with. But
Yeah.
he didn't say it in a manner that I would have thought that, oh, he's gonna control her. You know what I mean? Yeah, I myself have been in control. I've been in a controlling relationship. I've been through that, and I always try to look out for those signs with my friends, because I don't want friends or family to go through what I did. So, but I didn't see any of that with him. And when all this came out, when the missing posters came out, and people were saying, well, it could possibly be the husband, I stood up for him. I said, no way. He's so in love with her. He wouldn't do that. Blah, blah, blah. And I was 100% wrong. And it just, tore me apart in a way I can't even describe, because I have been so impacted by this in more ways than I can even explain.
Of course.
I knew I struggled with different things with it, because Casey was one in a million, and her kids were, I feel the same way about them. I love them just as much as I love my nieces and nephews. When I got pregnant with my daughter and I couldn't hear Casey's squeal and excitement, just it was so unique to her how excited she gets over things. She just had this aura about her, and just such a happy, loving person. She loved animals too. That's one other thing about Casey. That's how I thought she'd go. She'd be jumping into the water with an alligator or something, because she just loved animals so much. I mean, she talked about it. She would just say, "Well, I'm gonna just get in there and jump in there, and I'm gonna take him home with me." And I'm like, "Girl, so I'll eat you." But the more dangerous the animal, the more she loved it. And so she had this huge heart, but she had this excitement that she had in her voice, and she squealed. There's a video on her YouTube account where she wins tickets, and she squeals in excitement over winning them. I had to hear that when I had found out I was pregnant with my daughter, because it was the only way I was going to hear it. And I knew that was the same way she would have been if she would be here. She would have been just as excited to hear, because she did that with every baby she found out I was pregnant with. Her mom, Nikki, had told me when I got pregnant with Arabella, she said, "She sent you that gift from heaven." She goes, "She told Jesus, she told him that her best friend deserves a baby. She's went through too much heartache. She deserves that baby." And when she told me that, I just pictured it in my head of her sitting up there telling God and Jesus that, man, my best friend deserves a baby. My daughter has Casey's name. My daughter's named after her.
Oh.
My daughter's name is Arabella Casey Rose. So Rose is after my grandma, and so.
And I can cut this out. This is just if you don't want to talk about it, but you lost your son in 2019?
Yes. I lost him in 2019, June, just not even a full month before he took her.
Yeah.
As according to the timeline, he said July 10th, and my son was June 12th, and I gave birth to him on June 14th. I have a really hard time with the fact that Casey used to post on Facebook all the time. She was always on Facebook. She was a social media nut. And I'm like, if I would have been on Facebook, I would have seen that she wasn't posting as much, and maybe I would have checked more. Like I think about that stuff, and I know I can't, because there's nothing I can do to change it. There's nothing. You just wonder if there's anything that could have been done differently. And I live in Indiana. She lived in Florida. I just miss her. So I think about that stuff, and I think about the kids, and wonder what could have helped maybe prevent the kids. You just think about everything, and you wonder if there could have been something that could have changed the events, and then you're like, but I can't go back in time and change it. So it's just killing me to sit here and think about it. But you still do.
It's a vicious cycle, I think, from what I know. I obviously haven't been through something that horrific, but it sounds like it's just a vicious cycle in your head of questions and the why. And I mean, in some part you can understand, well, you can't understand, that's the wrong phrasing, but with Casey, like if they had a fight or something, but with the kids, there's just no way you can explain that
There's
at
not,
all.
not at all. And I'm
No.
like, I'm distraught over my best friend, but I'm like, I, I look at my daughter and she's a year
Yeah.
and I'm like, I just looking at Ayana and Raquel and how old they were, you just destroys you
Yeah.
in a way that's just unimaginable because you look at your own children. And then I think, man, me and my boyfriend have been planning my daughter's birthday. It's going to be in April. I found out I was pregnant with her in August of 2020, and I had her in April of 2021. And we've been planning her birthday, and I'm like, man, those kids aren't going to have another birthday. And you think about it because you're like, they should be able to. They, I mean, Ayana didn't even get the first birthday that I know Casey would have given her. Casey loved putting together the kids' birthdays. She did this Lorax theme for Preston one year, and she had messaged me, and we talked on the phone, and I sent her all kinds of ideas for it because Lorax was his favorite movie at the time. And I just remember her going all out just because it wasn't easy to find things for the Lorax because it wasn't as big as something like the Paw Patrol is now, and so she had to come up with ideas. So I found all kinds of stuff on Pinterest for her, and like, hey, I know I'm not going to be there, but here, let me help you. Of course, so that's what we did for each other. We helped each other even when we weren't in the same state. When we were miles away from each other, but we were still best friends. We'd do anything for one another. I always she just and she did for Callie's first birthday. She did it was like a winter wonderland. It was beautiful. The pictures were just gorgeous, and she just went all out for her kids' birthdays. I'm like, they don't get to do that.
And from what I hear from everyone, they were such good kids as well.
Oh, they were they were some of the best kids you would ever meet. They were so mild mannered, and they please thank you. You know, they gave their sweet little huggers. They gave their mom and dad, both of them, kisses. They were just so sweet.
I think there's family and loved ones and friends have had come under fire for the 6-week thing. But it sounds like for you were so deep in grief that,
I
and then
was.
you deactivated your Facebook. So I think that that's
Yeah,
important for people to know, because I'm sure that a lot of people have said things about that.
yeah, and that was why I had such a hard time with the fact that I was off Facebook because that was probably the longest I ever deactivated my Facebook. But I needed it for my own grief. It just still devastates you because you're like, well, what if I was on Facebook? What if I had been on it more? What if I hadn't been in my depression? Would I have known more? Would I have been able to help in some way? Am I guilty for not having been there more? But I'm like, I was going through my own grief, and it still just kills you because you're going through something so deep, and there's something else out there that's happening that's even more tragic than you can even imagine, and more traumatic. And I had no clue because I was dealing with my own tragedy at the time, and then this was another part of my tragedy that I didn't know was happening. And it just, you think about it. You think about those 6 weeks. You think about what you could have done different. You wonder, what if I hadn't went through what I did? And what if instead of deactivating Facebook, what if I hadn't? So what I have noticed, because I was so into my, what I was going through, it's hard. It's,
Very hard.
you don't want to sit there and put guilt on yourself, but at the same time you do, because when something like this happens, you don't know what else to do because you don't understand it. And you're just trying to wrap your mind around something, pulling at something. And there's just no answers for it.
And I don't think there ever will be. I mean, I guess maybe he'll give some explanation, but I don't think so. When did you know that something was wrong?
So my ex-husband and I were sitting down to eat at Blaze Pizza, and he was on Facebook, and he had seen the missing report from the family, because I think it tagged Casey in it. He went, "Hey, you might want to jump on Facebook," and he showed it to me, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh!" So then I got on, shared it, and then immediately tried messaging her, calling her, tried to call him. I tried to message him. I couldn't get a hold of either one of them, obviously. And I didn't know the family other than from her. I wasn't close to them at that point. I have since gotten close to them. So I believe I reached out to Sarah and Nikki, and I remember waking up for work and finding out that she had passed. I hadn't heard about the kids, and I tried. I tried to go to work, and I remember when I left work, I think I left early that day because I was having such a hard time with it. I was just praying that the kids were okay, and I was like, that's what I was leaning on. And when I got out to my car, that's when I found out about the kids. And that just completely hit me, because not many know this, but when we were last with them, we had talked about being more active, especially in the girls' lives, because the boys they had a dad, and so Richard, and the girls, we talked about possibly being, godparent type like. And then, if anything happened to them, they wanted us to be in their lives. And they knew that the boys would go to Richard, but they wanted, us to be in their lives. And we never went into detail over it if we were going to, you know, be able to be godparents and that kind of thing. But it was something we talked about, and just, it was hard
Of course.
because I just worried about those kids. And I knew, family was going to be there too, and that I love those kids. Like I said, like I love my nieces and nephews. Like they were my own kids. I would have done anything for them. And it's just so hard when you love children that much too. And on top of that, them just being kids, it's not just that they were just, I see these things in the news that, you hear these horrible stories like about Chris Watts, things like that, and your heart breaks, and oh my gosh, those kids, and I get so emotional for just watching those, and then knowing the children personally, it just, you're never gonna hear that Aunt Sheena again from them, it was hard for me to hear about Casey, but I was still holding out hope for those kids. And I just didn't want to at first believe that it was him.
How did you feel when you found out it was him and that he'd been arrested?
Disgusted. I felt angry, and I felt something I've never felt in my life, and that was hate. I've never hated anybody, not through all the past problems I've had, the different traumatic experiences I had experienced with men myself, and I never have. I'd always forgiven, no matter what I went through. It was so hard for me to fill my heart with hate for him, and that's what happened. I just was so angry and disgusted, and I was just I don't even know how to describe how angry, other than to say that there was a hate that filled my heart for him. I didn't even want to see his face. I wanted, and I have so many pictures on my phone of us all together. And I went through on one of my apps, and there's like a sticker that looks like a beach ball, and I just covered his face in every one of them. I just couldn't see him on my phone. And I just couldn't believe I'd hugged him. And then I'd shown love for him, and that I saw him as a friend, and that he did what he did. And it just made me question myself and my judgment of anybody.
After it happened, did any media reach out to you?
Yes. Yes, I had one. Sarah had posted on Facebook that they preferred people not talk to the media. So I had told them that until family was okay with it, at first I had agreed to talk to them because I didn't have a problem with it. I wasn't going to say anything to make things worse on the family, but once the family posted they didn't want anybody talking to media, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk to you until they're okay with it. And I don't think they really like that, but it was a news station in Indianapolis that had reached out to me, and I never ended up talking to them. So
Were they respectful when they reached out to you?
they were, until I told them no, and then they just ignored me.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think they were real thrilled.
Yeah, they didn't get the scoop they wanted.
No.
Did you receive any support after it happened? Any community support? Did people rally around you?
Just my work family, and my my home family, my family and friends that knew, those that knew Casey or knew of her or knew how close we were. I got support from them. My mom's always been supportive.
Were you
So
exposed to any negativity online because of what happened? Did people like leave you mean comments?
no,
Um,
I thankfully I didn't deal with any of that, and I wonder if it was because, I did have a lot of friends and family who didn't were supportive, and I don't think they would have let anybody do that, given that I had also went through the loss of my son that same year.
exactly. Yeah.
So I thankfully, no, I didn't have to deal with any negative comments, at least not on my side. I did not.
Did you see any of the body cam, any photos released? Did you accidentally come across any of those?
So I came across in December, I believe it was December of that same year, they had released some pictures to the public of the site where the kids were found in Casey, the accident, and I didn't realize that those were the pictures of the site. And once I read the comments first, and some were like, "Oh my gosh, you can see," and I was just like, "Nope, nope." I couldn't. I stayed off. I mean, I didn't deactivate my Facebook, but I stayed off Facebook for a little bit after that. And I think I spent the rest of the day crying. I just couldn't. I've never been able to bring myself to look at the pictures that have been released to the public. And that
Please
was one of
don't.
the things Sarah was afraid of for me. She didn't want me to see those, and she didn't know how it would affect me, because those will be something that will be shown. There will probably be more photos shown, I would assume, at the trial, and will probably show everything.
They may not, they'll probably show everything to the jury, but they may not publish
Show it
it
to the
for
public.
the public to see. But there's
Right, not
even
for the public,
sometimes, well, I
but
mean,
those that
sorry,
are
the public in
there.
the courtroom.
Oh,
So
okay.
they can actually, in some courtrooms, they can do it so that only the jury can see the photos or only the witness on the stand can see the
Yeah,
photos. And that's what they often do when things are quite gruesome. And then, to be honest with you, in some cases, it's certain scenes are so disturbing that sometimes they even blur it for the jury because it's that bad. So I think in this case they may do that. Well, it depends on what the prosecution decides to do,
right,
because it's of the serious nature. But they may even do that for the jury because, I mean, they're just sort of everyday folks like us, and
right.
that would be incredibly
Traumatizing.
traumatic. But I'm hoping that for the sake of the people that are just in the courtroom to watch, that they may not show them. They may just show it to the jury, so that, especially if they know that there's a lot of family and friends in the room, they may just do that and just not show it.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be going to the second half and not the first. So at least that's the current plan. It just depends on some situations in my life right now.
So how are you feeling with the trial being so close?
I've been more emotional lately with it than I have been. It's really been hitting close to home. And I'm ready to, I guess you can say, close that chapter of my life and have, when he does get the verdict and all that, I want to always share with my daughter about the good memories about Casey and the kids. And I want her to always know who she's named after. I want to let Casey and the kids' memory live on in the best way possible for her and for myself. Yeah, the trial is just thinking about it some days. It hits.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know how else to describe it other than that some days you just sit there and you think about it and you just want to see justice served. You want to know that something is going to be done over what he did and that he deserves to pay for what he did. But what is that payment? And do we, at the end of the day, the judgment that we make isn't the same judgment that I'm Christian, so the same judgment that God's gonna make. Like what the sheriff had said. He meets his maker, I hate to be him. But at the
Exactly.
same time, I'm like, you know what? He deserves everything coming to him because of what he did.
This is a death penalty case. How do you feel about that being a possible sentence?
Mixed feelings. There's part of me that I'm like, I want him to wake up every day with knowing what he did and having to see their faces. And then there's another part of me that I just want him out of this world. And I don't believe I'm like, I love Florida, but right now, when I cross there, he's there and she's not. I just don't want him there. I decide life is so unfair from that and the way that I think about with that. I'm like, how's he get to continue living his life when they're were just stolen? All
Mm.
five of them were just stolen from this world. It wasn't just an accident. It wasn't natural causes. They were just stolen. I'm like, what right does he have to be able to continue living life? But that's also, I'm like, as a Christian, is that right for me to think that? So I have mixed feelings on it. There's days I'm like, man, I hope he gets the death penalty. And there's other days that I'm like, is it really my place to say that?
Yeah. Do you think that you'll feel peace either way? Not obviously not peace with what happened at all, but will you feel some sort of satisfaction or some sort of healing to have the verdict either way? Because to be honest, he's not going to be found not guilty. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
How will you feel when you hear either life or death?
I'm hoping a sense of healing will begin, but I don't know until it happens. I'm hoping some sort of healing, but I'll never forget what happened. I'll never be able to what people tell you is that, oh, you'll get over it. You'll get through it. And I'm like, when you go through grief, you don't just get over it. You don't move on from it. You just learn to live with the fact that that person or those people aren't here anymore. You just learn to live life still grieving them, but in your own way. You don't stop grieving them. You just are able to live life a little better than you were when it first happened.
And as I said to Sarah, you learn how to carry the grief with you through life. You never forget. That's not what happens, but you learn how to live your life around it.
Yeah, that's the truth. You do.
Are you going to make a victim impact statement at the sentencing?
Yes, that's my current plan. Yes. Sarah has asked me to write it out, and then I gotta. So, yes, I do plan on doing that.
Is there anything you want us to know about Casey that hasn't been put out there, or about the children?
I think I've said pretty good what everybody else has said is those kids were, I mean, they weren't perfect, but they were darn close. Casey was just, she had this love of life. Her kids were her whole world. She was, she was one in a million. You don't meet somebody like that every day that just is so full of life and happiness. And she would have given anybody the shirt off of her back. And like I said, she loved animals. Every loss I went through, she was there for me, even though she wasn't physically here because she didn't live here. She was still reaching out, letting me know she loved me, letting me know she was there. She always was hoping and praying that I'd get to be a mom.
She sounds like such a great friend to have.
She was. She was amazing. There's days I wish that she was here so I could just talk to her, just hear her laugh, hear her voice. All I have are the videos.
I'm so glad that you have so many videos. It was lovely to go through and watch them all on YouTube and sort of get a sense of how happy she seemed.
She was.
She just seemed like a really bright and bubbly person.
She really was. She really was. She deserves justice, and so does the kids. They definitely didn't deserve this. They deserved a full life, and he stole that from them, and there needs to be something done over it. And I hope that justice is served. That's it.
I know justice will be served because what he did was vile and abhorrent. So, I'm looking forward to that for you all, so that you can move forward, not move on, but move forward in your grief journey.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
You're welcome.
I,
Thank
I,
you for
I
reaching out.
yeah, I had a lot of feedback from Sarah's interview that it was really helpful to hear the other side, because we don't hear it as much, and cases become so sensationalized. If you need anything, or if you want to reach out, then please do. And I'm thinking of you,
Thank you
and I
so
hope
much.
you're doing okay and everything. And yeah,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Thank you too.
Bye.
Bye.
I want to thank Sheena for being so open and raw in this interview. I would love if you would leave some messages of comfort in the comments for her down below. I have several interviews in the work for Behind the Crime. I'm looking forward to sharing them with you, so don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you know when I upload. Until next time, bye for now.